I mean, today, I think anybody could take Steven Seagal. Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, TV shows, music, video games, foodstuffs, and more from three people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Aaron Dicer.
What is the most important thing in life?
What are you talking about?
What's the most important thing?
Respect.
Too dependent on other people.
What, love?
A little Disneyland, isn't it?
God's will.
It's close.
What is that?
Necessity.
Hello, everybody. It's Recotopia, episode 157. My name is Chris Atkinson, joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hidely-ho, Bullianerinos.
Yes, and we had a Saddamerinos in the chat, and we're also joined by Jeremy Scott.
Are we shooting people or what?
Yep, that's a good question. Also would like to welcome chat who have come out here to watch us talk about movies here on a Tuesday. Let's start us off with some small recommends. And actually, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I need to say that today's big recommend is Three Kings, and I can't wait to get into that movie Jeremy has picked. So now let's get into the small recommends.
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light.
It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
Jeremy, kick us off.
I like to mix it up. I don't always bring you a movie. I don't always watch a movie every week that I can bring you. But I have gotten addicted to a little free word puzzle game, and I would like to share it with you. Now, a couple years ago, you may remember when Wordle hit the scene, and everyone on the internet and their brother was playing Wordle, and then the New York Times bought it, and some people stopped playing it. But there were dozens of spin-offs. There's a Quordle where there's like 4 words that you're trying to guess at once. There's like Movie Duel. There's all kinds of duels now. I still play Wordle every day too, Castriff. Now, when my dad was here for Thanksgiving, he said, my brothers and I are playing a new Wordle type game called Heartle. And I was like, okay. Now, let me tell you how it works. Wordle, basically, you have 5 chances, I think 6 maybe, to guess a 5-letter word. So you start with a word. Let's say vomit. Great choice, Jeremy. And then if any of those letters are in the today's word, but in the wrong position, they turn yellow. If any of those letters are in today's word in the right position, they turn green. All right. So now you know, all right, the O and the V are both in this, but they're in the wrong spot. So you keep guessing, so on. So Heartle is basically that, only instead of the letters turning yellow or green, you just get a yellow or green number to the right side of what you've guessed. So you don't know which of those, let's say it's a yellow 1. You don't know which of the letters in the word you guessed is actually in today's word. You just know that one of the 5 is. And you have 10 chances. And basically, I tried playing it that day. My dad was showing it to me, and I was like, this is insane. This is completely impossible. Why would I do this? And then something happened a week or 2 later. I was like, I'm going to check this game out again. And now I've gotten pretty good at it. I almost always get it. But also, I want to warn you, this game will shame you. If you get it on like the 9th guess out of 10, it'll say, nice try, but do better tomorrow. And I think it's kind of fun that way. Anyway, it's heartle.org. If you like word games and word puzzles, if you like Wordle, give it a shot. It's become a daily play for me. It costs nothing. I don't even think it has very many ads, if any at all. So there you go. That's my small recommend for this week. Heartle.org.
It always amazes me that you're into all these different games, Jeremy. I don't know why. I mean, you have always been into these type of games, I guess, but like a lot of them at once. Like last week, Civ 7, and then and then this, and I know that Heartle is nothing like Civ 7, but like there's all these games, that you've been mentioning lately that I'm just like, Oh, wow. I didn't realize Jeremy was into all this stuff, man. That's well, you know, and I don't play any of this stuff. I've never played Wordle. It's something that would be right up my alley, but I think that's the reason why I've never played it, because I know it would be something that I would do every day, and I'd, you know, here's another time waster. That's just what I need right now in my life.
The New York Times has a spelling bee game. That's my absolute favorite daily word game. But sometimes it can be difficult enough where I'll be thinking about words for hours instead of like minutes. So it can suck my day away.
Yeah, I used to play all the dulls, the Wordle, the Quirtle, the Sesquassagadurtle, or whatever it was, where there's like 16 different words that you simultaneously, every guess counts for every word, all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of fell away from it because you kind of crack the code on the Wordle thing. Like you have your starting word, and then, you know, it's almost always either, you know, 3 guesses or 4 guesses, and you know. But this sounds interesting. This sounds more like I might not get one every once in a while, and that's kind of what I like.
I miss probably 1 out of every 10. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm more often than not am on guess 8 or 9 when I get it. My dad said my uncles would get it like on guess 4, and I'm like, you smart bastards.
Yeah, I might give that a try for sure.
Yeah. Aaron, what do you got on your small recommends?
I've been, like I mentioned, have been catching up on some Criterion stuff. I saw The Night of the Hunter.
Yeah, this is a great one.
This is phenomenal. I was not ready for how good this is and how modern it feels. It feels like it kind of invented something. I mean, I'm sure there have been examples of serial killer movies before this, or the idea of even, you know, hate and love, you know, on the fingers or whatever, which we've seen since this movie, of course.
Right.
But yeah, you know, it is a movie that does not hold its secrets. Like its secrets, it presents pretty quickly, and then kind of just lets you feel the tension of what is going on here with this Robert Mitchum character, who is a pastor who comes to this small town. And then things start happening. So it is one of those things that I've enjoyed, and wanted to pass it along. So yeah.
Yeah, Robert Mitchum is terrifying in this movie, and yeah, this is I've seen this a couple of times, but I haven't seen this in a long time. I need to revisit it. But every time I've watched it, I'm like, man. This is such a good movie.
Yeah.
The hate and love thing, I'm wondering, because Robert Mitchum was in the original Cape Fear, but I don't remember if he had that particular thing going on in that. But then De Niro does in the 1991 Cape Fear, the Scorsese Cape Fear. I think he's got, or does he have hate and love? He has something like that on his knuckles, I think, or whatever.
Has something on there.
But I think it's a sort of an homage to that, at least. But Mitchum was in the original Cape Fear. Then in 1991, De Niro does that.
Yeah,
I think Mitchum plays like a different character in Cape Fear too. Anyway, Night of the Hunter, I can second to that recommend.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I have a non-movie thing this week. I was watching YouTube, and there's a channel that I really like called Golden Bell Training that does a lot of it has a lot of like history about Bruce Lee and stuff like that. Like, and when there was all the controversy about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and how Quentin Tarantino treated Bruce Lee in that movie and everything, there was a big long video about that and what Quentin Tarantino got wrong and so on and so forth. But there are other stuff that he puts on there too, and it doesn't have to be just Bruce Lee. It's just like all fighters. And one I ran across this past week, I think he just came out with it last week, was a Steven Seagal versus Michael Jai White discussion. And I did not realize I only knew Michael Jai White as a movie star who had action chops. I didn't know that he was really in the world of martial arts and stuff like that, and is highly respected. Did not know that. First time I ran into Michael Jai White watching movies was Spawn way back in the day, and then you saw him pop up in The Dark Knight, and Joker slams his head against the desk and the pencil and all that stuff. But someone asked Steven Seagal about Michael Jai White in an interview in 2012, and he says, "Can I laugh in your face?" which is on the thumbnail down here on the video. And everybody was wondering, why the hell is he Steven Seagal against Michael Jai White all of a sudden? He's acted with him 3 times. He's even asked him to be on movies before, all this type of thing. So what Golden Bell Training does on this video is breaks down the careers of Steven Seagal and Michael Jai White, and then how those 2 careers converged and how they got into what would be a kind of war of words, but the conclusions, I will let you guys watch this video from the Golden Bell Training guy, that you're gonna get a lot of like interesting insight into these 2 guys, like how good is Seagal really in the martial arts spectrum? How good is Michael Jai White? Who has a lot of the respect of real fighters, and do real fighters think that they could just take down Steven Seagal, no questions asked, and things like that. This is so fascinating. It's like an hour-long video breakdown into Steven Seagal and Michael Jai White, and I was riveted, and I think you guys would love it too.
Wild. I mean, today, I think anybody could take Steven Seagal. He's like ballooned, lost all of his muscle, and I think he's in Russia, isn't he? Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's in Russia.
The video goes into it a little bit. I did watch this, Chris. I was happy for the recommend, and it is really interesting, Seagal, how quickly he let ego dominate his decisions, and it just defined his career and his personal world. And we see a lot of that in modern culture and modern life. But yeah, it's a really interesting breakdown on how narcissism and ego can just dominate someone.
He just can't. I mean, he's like a lot of these strongmen types who believe that if you show any weakness whatsoever, you are somehow less than. And one of the things about Steven Seagal is that he cannot be shown getting beaten up in a movie. That's how.
Yeah, he had a no-hit clause. He couldn't even be shown being hit.
How afraid he is of showing any kind of weakness whatsoever.
The Rock is kind of the same way, has the same clauses in his contract.
Oh, does he? Yeah,
well, it's a little bit more.
Lose a fight. I think
have to give out more than I take, but
yeah,
it's not quite. Nobody ever hits me, but it's the same kind of ego-driven stuff. I think they all do. I think Vin Diesel has it. I think Jason Statham has it, because that image is too important.
Yeah. Alan in chat was asking what the channel's name is. It's called Golden Bell Training. Just go to that and you'll see tons of I can really actually recommend this comes out as more of as a recommend for his entire channel, really, because they're really good and well-researched videos. So, all right. Let's get on to our big recommend, which is Three Kings, and it's Jeremy's. So take it away, Jeremy.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
All right, I'm excited to hear you guys' thoughts. But first, let's dive into the synopsis. We open on Shooter, Marky Mark, whose name is Troy, in the Iraqi desert, shouting to fellow soldiers, asking if they are shooting people or what. Without getting a clear answer, he makes a big hit and shoots the Iraqi in front of them, who is waving both a gun and a white cloth. We then get the title card and cut to soldiers at an American base, cutting loose and using a very questionable group peeing device made out of PVC pipes. We also see an NBS reporter, Nora Dunn, whose name is Adriana Cruz, recording a piece about the soldiers after the war in Iraq has ended. In a tent party, we get introduced to several soldiers, mostly Marky Wahlberg and Spike Jonze and Jamie Kennedy, and in a nearby tent, Archie, who's George Clooney, and he's banging Judy Greer and apparently retires in 2 weeks. Ice Cube, who is Chief Elgin, mostly known as Chief throughout the movie, busts into the main barracks to announce that the captain is coming, and everyone rushes to clean up from the party. But the captain arrives and screams about how they have to arrest more Iraqi prisoners tomorrow, and then we smash cut to that very event. In the act of forcibly stripping an Iraqi prisoner, Troy and Conrad find a document in his ass, which they find to be some kind of map. Not after a bit of back and forth about the pain and gain of pulling a document from an enemy combatant's anus. Meanwhile, Archie gets bitched out by the colonel for not properly taking care of Adriana, so she'll put out positive stories about the army. Archie questions the war and acts like his assignment to escort the journalist is some kind of intolerable cruelty. Troy shows the map to the chief, who pulls some satellite photos to try and find the exact location the map is pointing to. Chief tells the boys they should go after whatever the map is leading to because it will be valuable, and also he has a ring of Jesus fire to guide his decisions. And I hate to break it to Chief Ice Cube, but today is not going to be a good day. Cluing Archie barges into the tent and essentially horns in on their ass map find. He believes the bunker on the map contains gold bullion. He instructs Walter to take Adriana on a wild goose chase the next morning while he, Troy, Conrad, and Chief go after the gold. And here's where the map, which is basically a ticket to paradise, should have been memorized and then burned after reading. On the way to the bunker, the guys shoot skeet with Nerf footballs and C4 infused Nerf footballs and argue about the merit of black quarterbacks while Chief keeps asking, "Are we there yet?" Frustrated with their lack of focus, Archie stops the Humvee and gives a lecture about bullet wounds and then conducts a dry run of their bunker invasion. But an exploding, hidden cluster bomb covers them all in cow parts, and they decide to just go do the heist. Everything goes pretty well for most of the heist. They don't have to fire their guns, and everyone cooperates or is easily subdued because it is a broken city. But they learn that the gold isn't there. At that point, Iraqi soldiers arrive just in time to blow up the milk truck that has just arrived for the villagers. The villagers beg for medicine and help and food, and the soldiers, the American soldiers, hand out some MREs before heading out for the next bunker to check for the gold. It's clear they are all at least partially conflicted about leaving without helping the villagers. Just outside of town, they stop to catch their breath, and Archie realizes the gold actually is in that town they just left. Meanwhile, Walter's doing a good job distracting Adriana as she starts sobbing over oil-covered pelicans. Walter cries as well, but she steals his vehicle, though she eventually comes back for him, only to insist he tell her where the major is. Back at the village, Archie inspects a suspicious well and finds it's actually a staircase down to underground. They find some soldiers, but also a man that is being tortured named Amir. It's distressing, and Archie disconnects Amir. The man and several others make their way topside while the Americans force a soldier to take them further down into the bunker. Eventually, they get to a room with several suitcases filled with fine jewelry, fine silverware, and yes, gold bricks. Archie now believes this is going to be one fine day. Up top, Iraqi soldiers arrive and start accosting the prisoners who have just been down in the bunker. Conrad tries to assert authority, but he has none, and not just because he's Conrad. When Archie and them get up top with some of the gold, the Iraqi commander is vaguely threatening, but has his soldiers bucket brigade the rest of the gold from the bunker for Archie. They've done it. The gold is theirs. But when they see Amir's wife get executed in front of them, Amir and his daughter, the situation proves too much, and Archie decides to be the peacemaker and gets out of the Humvee to talk to the Iraqi commander. Archie says, "Cover me," and then goes and disarms the soldier that is holding back the husband and daughter from mourning their executed wife and mother. Archie then goes back to the commander and tells him to leave the town. The man tries to raise his gun on Archie, but Archie grabs the muzzle. But it's too late. Gunfire breaks out, and sadly, Chief does have to use his AK. Several Iraqi soldiers are hit. Troy is also hit, but his Kevlar protects him, and Archie executes the Iraqi commander. Then they move in on the rest of the Iraqi soldiers. Archie frees the prisoner villagers and says, "Put the people in the Humvee," just as an Iraqi tank arrives, creating the perfect storm. Somehow, the timing allows all the American soldiers to avoid becoming the departed. A small Iraqi child fires a gun at the Iraqi soldiers, but the tank takes him out mercilessly. Then the soldiers fire artillery gas shells at the fleeing Americans, choking them out and leading Conrad to drive recklessly into a minefield. Everyone in the Humvee bails out before the wreck, but then the truck with the gold that Troy is driving is hit by shrapnel from the Humvee explosion and topples on its side, narrowly avoiding hitting a mine and exploding itself. Meanwhile, Archie gets Chief and the hostages collected and through the minefield until they are aided by mask-wearing locals who lead them to a cave. Notably, the masked locals also go out and retrieve the gold in the Louis Vuitton bags. Before joining the rest in the cave, Archie tries one more search for Troy, yelling out, "Oh, brother, where art thou?" But he gets no response. Troy is taken to a new location and locked in a basement room. He starts kicking the boxes in the room and finds one full of cell phones. He tries several until he finds one that works, but it dies before he can be connected with the base. He finds another phone and this time calls home And it works because this phone has the family plan. He tells his wife he's been captured and to call the army. Outside, rebels are attacking just as Adriana and Walter have arrived. Walter, being a soldier and not a media member, is grabbed and stripped by the Iraqi soldiers. Eventually, they stop the news filming and allow Walter back onto the vehicle as long as they all leave, and so they do. Back at the base, enough people have been missing long enough that the colonel realizes Archie is up to something, and they begin investigating. Chief, Conrad, and Archie find themselves amongst dozens and dozens of Iraqi refugees in a severely overcandled underground cave, and I have some serious questions about oxygen and carbon dioxide. But at least for now, they are all out of sight. They count the gold remaining, but it ends with a brief lecture from Amir, whom they rescued, about how this war destroys life as he lays out the full gravity of the situation. And also that he knows they're just stealing the gold and not taking it for Kuwait. An unsteady agreement is struck to give these Iraqi refugees some of the gold in exchange for their help finding Troy. The refugees push for another condition of being escorted to the Iranian border. The soldiers push back. Eventually, Archie is convinced, and they divvy up the guns and set out. Back with Troy, he is now hooked up to metal wires and being interrogated. The first question is, what is the problem with Michael Jackson? But Troy doesn't understand. Your sick fucking country make the black man hate himself, the interrogator says, claiming America made Michael Jackson turn himself white. And this movie has a lot more to say about race than you might initially realize. And now the brief shots of the Rodney King beating on the TVs in the first bunker make a little bit more sense. Troy is asked if the army is coming to help him, and he says no, but the interrogator doesn't believe him. So he instructs his assistants to use the Jolt Volt machine to shock Troy. And I could guarantee you that those are not good vibrations, and that he definitely did feel it. Troy is told his interrogator's wife lost her legs and his 1-year-old child died because of American bombs. He forces Troy to think about his own wife and daughter being bombed. Meanwhile, the refugee caravan passes through a small village and are welcomed warmly by the locals and a group of Iraqi army deserters. They ask them for a vehicle and are shown a vault of luxury vehicles. Ultimately, they are extorted for more gold to use the vehicles because this dude is a money monster. And it's worth noting that they are systematically losing more and more of the stolen gold as they go along. They lost more than half of it in the gas attack, they lost half to the refugees, and now they're losing more to the guy that owns the cars. The dilution of their gold directly corresponds to the dilution of their selfishness. Their planned success is now completely up in the air, and they are fully in uncharted territory. The hostage and the American, that's Archie, come up with a plan to trick the Iraqi outpost into thinking Saddam is coming as a distraction to rescue Troy. Their fake lead car arrives just as a Republican Guard member outside the compound is stepping into a Slim Jim. The car yells that Saddam is coming and is going to kill them all, and the roof lookout sees the rest of the cars coming. Saddam is coming to kill us, cries ring out as men abandon the base entirely, throwing off their weapons as they run. Conrad throws a football bomb down into the bunker, and some soldiers run right by the entering Archie, and Chief without even seeming to realize they are American soldiers. But some of the Iraqi soldiers go to the roof and realize it's not Saddam and start shooting before eventually being run off. However, a helicopter arrives and starts firing, causing Conrad and some of the refugees to take off running. One of them is shot and killed and lands on top of Conrad. Chief and some others run out of the compound, but that helicopter is a pesky bitch and forces them all back inside. But Chief tosses a Nerf football bomb with perfect aim, and it explodes the chopper. Down in the bunker, Archie kicks indoors and eventually finds the interrogation room. He kills all the guards but the lead interrogator, whom he shoots in the leg before untying Troy and giving Troy a gun so that he can kill his tormentor. But Troy shoots the wall instead to prove he isn't the evil American soldier the man thought he was. When they surface, Conrad runs to greet Troy, but is shot by one of the returning Iraqi soldiers who heard the helicopter and thought the battle had turned. Troy stands up to yell for Archie's help and is shot by the second returning Iraqi soldier before Archie mercilessly kills him. Troy's wound has punctured his lungs, and Archie correctly begins the procedure to help him while Conrad dies, and Troy mourns his friend. Archie is able to implant a valve in Troy that will help him get fluid out of his lungs for a few hours before the group goes about readying Conrad's body by wrapping it. Archie calls Walter and instructs him to go to a contact and bring 4 personnel trucks and a Humvee to Archie's location, promising each driver will get $100,000. We then see Amir handing out single gold bricks to each of the other refugees. Somehow, inexplicably, Walter comes through within 2 hours and brings the 4 personnel trucks and the Humvee, and everyone loads up on the vehicles, and the entourage heads out for the Iran border. At the same time, we see the army base deploy a bunch of helicopters and soldiers to go find Archie. Everything comes to a head just yards from the border. They start escorting the refugees on foot toward the armed Iranian guards, and we hear and see Adriana in the background reporting on the events. But before they reach the border, the American helicopters arrive and force them to stop. Archie and the rest push forward, determined to get the refugees to safety as promised. Absolutely none of them is thinking about the gold anymore. American troops then arrive and arrest Archie and Troy and Chief despite their pleas to first let the refugees cross or else they'll all be killed. The immediate concern then turns to Troy, who cannot reach his valve while cuffed and begins to struggle to breathe as Archie and Chief beg the arresting officers to let him reach the valve. Eventually, the officer attending to Troy cuts his cuffs and Troy is able to reach his valve and breathe again. With silent looks between all three men, it's agreed they will trade the gold they have left for the safe passage of the refugees and all their descendants. Archie tells his colonel, return the gold, save some refugees, get that star, and it works. The refugees are allowed to cross with Conrad's body, the news people filming all of it. The end of the movie text on screen tells us that the three were honorably discharged, quite a different outcome to the court-martial promised to them by the colonel. But it was Adriana's reporting that made the men too big of heroes for them to be punished for their actions. Chief leaves his airport luggage job to work with Archie in teaching movie actors how to move like real soldiers. Troy, quite the Renaissance man, now runs his own carpet company and had another kid. Jesus, this is a happy ending for everyone except for Conrad. And that's Three Kings.
That's an impressive number of movies that you threw into that synopsis there.
I tell you what, that was so impressive. I'm willing to listen to it from dusk to dawn. That's how impressive
that's
that
correct.
was.
I mean, you even threw in Renaissance Man at the end. Nobody knows that movie. Okay, so first off, did you guys notice that was Elia Shawkat? That was Amir's daughter in the movie?
I did not until I was looking at IMDb. Apparently, this is her debut.
Yeah.
Well, and I had that moment at the end where I was like, man, that guy looks like Jim Gaffigan, like a total discount Jim Gaffigan moment. It is Jim Gaffigan. I saw that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love Three Kings. I think I appreciate it way more than I did even back in 1999. And I think the reputation of David O. Russell sort of hovers over this movie quite a bit. We have heard so much about him. This movie's got its own story about George Clooney choking him out because he was treating an extra or somebody on the set wrong or whatever. And then, he has the I Heart Huckabees blow up and all that type of stuff. So, being able to watch this movie without really thinking about that this time, it's extremely helpful. Because the movie is really, really well done. I love the fact that this starts off as a heist film and ends as a humanitarian film, and I just it's crazy, like, to me, like how they just, it is kind of a fantasy. I don't think in general people who are like looking to go steal Kuwaiti gold are going to really care about, the plight of the people, but we've got them, I think these characters are just on the edge enough to make it work, and everything. So, I really do love how this movie goes about it, and it's just filled with just amazing actors all the way through. Like, this was before, Clooney had done ER. I think he was a star, but like, he still hadn't quite, I don't think he still had quite had a big, huge movie hit yet by this point. It may not be until like Ocean's 11 until he gets something like big. Like, he's been in something that's critically acclaimed, like Out of Sight.
Yes.
He's been in that. But nothing, and this movie I think did okay. I don't think it was a bomb or anything like that.
No, it made like 108 million.
Yeah, it did okay, but I think it also, it's sort of it's a good one for Mark Wahlberg coming off of Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights felt like kind of a one-off for him to show how good he could be. I'm still kind of like about Mark Wahlberg in general, but I think he's good in this. Ice Cube, same way. Like, he had done earlier work that you're like, oh, Ice Cube's pretty damn good. in these movies, like Boys in the Hood and stuff like that. And he's been, I don't know, I hadn't seen anything really up until this point where it showed Ice Cube, man, he's good. And then Spike Jonze comes out of nowhere. Like Spike Jonze, basically only known for doing the Sabotage video and like a couple of other big huge 90s music videos and everything, comes in here and does an acting job, and he's directing Being John Malkovich in the same year. That's amazing. I love Nora Dunn. We talked about Kevin Dunn, her brother, a few times. She's great too. She's always a welcome presence, and we did The Last Supper. She was in that. She was really, really good in that movie, and she's great in this. And I think it's also awesome that the movie talks about how it has a slight message about the press doing their jobs, basically, where it goes to show if you can frame a story a certain way, people will be compelled to do the right thing. Like in this one, like they're ready to get court-martialed at the end of this. But because the story is humanitarian in nature and is like, hey, they saved these people, and everything, even though their intentions were not that when they first left the base, still that's something that it shows the power of the media when you tell a story like this, and and people shape their opinions the correct way, and if you start pulling punches and doing all these other things, you get the wrong story out of something, and we're getting a lot of that these days, that type of thing. So I listened to the commentary on this one. David O. Russell has a track. There's another track on this one as well. I've got the Blu-ray of this movie. That he talks about, and I don't think he would say it this way, and I think this commentary is probably from 1999 or 2000 or whatever, but talking about the racial slurs that these people use at the beginning of the movie. And apparently they had some Arab advisors that told them, we don't like this at all. We don't like this being in the movie at all. And he said, no, this is the journey that they're taking. They don't respect these people at the beginning of the movie. They don't look at them as people even. They're just like whatever. And then it takes Mark Wahlberg to get sort of imprisoned and get into this, or taken hostage, and then all these other soldiers getting into a tense situation for them to realize there are human beings behind all this stuff that we're doing that we didn't even realize. We didn't even realize that this was going on, really. The whole idea of George Bush saying, rise up against Saddam, these people don't have weapons or an army or anything like that to go. And they said, and they left them dry, man. They left them hanging dry out there. I think we should have known that probably way early on. Remember, if you were old enough to watch Gulf War stuff, and they first started talking about the Patriot missile blowing up the Scud missiles and stuff, and we all had that euphoria, like, oh, we got the Patriot missiles, they're killing the Scud missiles, oh my God, we're saving people, and blah blah blah. And you find out that they never hit anything. They never hit shit the entire time. But there's, even then, of course, the media is not doing their job and asking the right questions and everything. So, but yeah, the journey that they have in there, from calling them the names that they do in this movie to finally, by the end of it, just giving up their freedom so that these guys can go to Iran and have a safe haven and everything. I just love that journey. I love how this movie's filmed. They did a process that apparently they didn't think it was going to cost millions of dollars. And the first lab that they went to said, we can't guarantee this is going to look good. And there was no way to insure it either. They couldn't insure it. So like they were taking this film to a lab and they were like, we can't guarantee this will look good and you can't insure it. So they went to another lab, and apparently they found some genius in that lab that could do everything correctly with the film that they were using. It's like some ecto something. I can't remember what they called it, but they found some genius to do it, and they're like, we love this. This is amazing. And then the following week, it started looking terrible. And they were like, what happened? He said, well, that guy went on his honeymoon. He got married and everything. And so they're like, we need to get that guy back. So they basically called this dude on his honeymoon and got him to come back so that he could work on this film. And there's so many great little touches in this thing. That shot where everything goes down, like, you know, the mother gets shot and that whole battle goes on and everything. And they're standing there, and those clouds are like going by in the background and everything. This movie is beautiful to watch. It is absolutely incredible. And I also thought it was interesting too that Catherine Hardwicke, who is famous for 13 and Twilight, was a production designer on this movie. And so a lot of the stuff, the town, the little tunnels and bunkers they go into, that was Catherine Hardwicke doing work on that. So that was another cool revelation out of all this. But yeah, this movie's great. I love it. What else can you say?
Great question. I'll try to figure out other things to say. They may sound a little repetitive because you kind of ticked down my list, which starts with, for me, a great combination of actors. I think, you know, Clooney, Wahlberg, and Cube are so good together, and they all have that thing where it's like there's a charisma that has a magnetism to it. And sometimes when actors who both have that kind of magnetic charisma act together, they act like a magnet and repel. But in this case, they are all like, they are, you know, their polarity is in sync, let's just say, because they really work together. And you mentioned Spike Jonze in the mix. It's, you know, just a really interesting, almost comedic relief performance, and yet it means something, not just because of what happens to that character, but also because of the person he is portraying. You know, the type of person with limited understanding, you know, limited understanding of the situation, is just, you know, there for the rah-rah, you know, war nature of it or whatever. And then what, you know, he's trying to see through the movie. I wanted to go back to the alternate slur conversation that you mentioned as well, where they're like, you know, getting on him for the slurs he's using when there are such better alternatives available.
Right.
Much better. And I think the movie is making a really sharp point about why we other people. And here's a black soldier with white soldiers talking about, you can't other them this way because that others me as well. So we have to other them in a way that is other to all of us.
Right.
That is just such human nature stuff. And they don't even realize it in that moment, you know, what they're doing when they're saying those things. But it's just that kind of thought-provoking stuff that I really dig in movies like this. Jeremy also mentioned the what's the matter with Michael Jackson conversation, which I think touches on all that stuff. You mentioned the way this movie conceptualizes some of the shots are so unique and interesting. I don't think we've mentioned the interior human body shots yet.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just, it decides to show how a bullet creates bile in the human body, and it's so effective and just, you know, makes you grapple with more than just the sound of a gunshot and somebody going thwack, you know, and it's like, that's all you see in movies usually, you know.
That was a long time rumor, apparently, that they used an actual cadaver, but it was just one of the whoever would be responsible for making something like that on a movie set. It was the one who made it, and that person got a lot of like traction from that once they found out that he really made this body that they shot a bullet through or whatever. But yeah, but that was an actual rumor there that it was a real body for a while.
They even touch on race with the Chekhov's black quarterback conversation that, you know, has a little payoff when Cube is the one that throws the best pass, you know, for the helicopter. So all that stuff's really smart and well thought out and ingenious. The one part I hadn't thought about till this time through, and I don't know why, because it's really right there, and I'm sure, has been talked about ad nauseum, is what a mirror these three's situation is to the moral conundrum of the war itself. Because the idea of going into the Gulf was, painted as one thing, but it was so much about money. It was so much about the oil and the gold, as it were. And these three come to a place where they realize the humanitarian aspect is more important than the money, which I'm not sure our country has ever really grappled with in that, succinct of a way. And so the idea that they are a microcosm of the motivation of the war is interesting to me in a way this time through that I hadn't really thought about before. So it's a really smart script, really interesting and strangely comedic in a way that works. And that's not easy to pull off.
I wrote that Jamie Kennedy is not really even playing against type, but his presence is so important for the tone overall of this movie because he brings levity in moments where we need it. A few other things that I noticed this time through. I'm not trying to step on you, Aaron, if you have other things you want.
No, I'm good. I'm all set.
I like how different Troy's arc, or what creates his arc of empathy, it's a different journey than what Clooney and Ice Cube go through. They're rescued by refugees, and they're in the cave with the refugees, and they bond with them over that journey, whereas Mark Wahlberg's character, it's almost that interrogator gets to him because he starts picturing his wife being blown up and his kid, and that is the beginning of his turn. And it comes in a moment where he's being tortured. And I just find that fascinating that they all get to the same place, but the journey is not identical in how they get there. I also saw weird parallels I've never seen before, like Ice Cube's day job is a luggage handler, and the gold is in suitcases and then put in Louis Vuitton luggage. So he's doing his job while stealing the gold that he does at home, only he's not getting paid for it this time. Well, he is. It's gold. I also read on IMDb that David O. Russell never wanted George Clooney for this role, which might be part of the animosity between them. He went first, according to IMDb, to Clint Eastwood, Mel Gibson, Nicolas Cage, Jack Nicholson, and Dustin Hoffman, all of whom turned down the part. So no wonder Clooney's a little bit got a chip on his shoulder. I kind of get that. That movie does not work, I don't think, with any of those people in this role. Maybe one or two of them.
Maybe Hoffman.
Clint Eastwood in 99 is still 20 years too old for that role.
Yeah.
If
still
not more.
69 years old.
I went through the IMDb trivia before I even watched the movie, and I wrote down that David O. Russell said he didn't want to use a lot of bullets because the whole approach I used with bullets in the movie was that I tried to make each bullet alive. And then I watched the movie, and there are hundreds and hundreds of bullets being fired in this movie, and I don't know what he's talking about unless he specifically means that first scene in the village where the shooting pops off, and then I get it, because those bullets do
what
feel
he's
alive.
talking about for sure. He's not talking about the random stuff that you kind of have to do, because if he did that whole movie that whole way where it's like slow motion bullets and that weird frame rate thing or whatever, then whatever. But I think that's what he means. Yeah.
I think it's a little. I do see what he's talking about in that. In many movies, like I talked, like even with the interior human body stuff, he's doing that, right? Like he's saying there's an impact. There's a moment where somebody uses a rocket launcher to take out a kid who's sniping from a building, and even that is shown in a more slowed down version of what we usually see, where we feel the impact of what that rocket launch shot means. So yes, there's plenty of pew pew in this movie, but I think throughout the movie he does take those opportunities to go, this bullet actually had an impact, and it's the thing we're focusing on right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I just also want to bring up Cliff Curtis too, the guy who plays Amir. Like he's a sort of an all-time like go-to character actor. He's from New Zealand. He's Maori or whatever. But
the Megs, Cliff Curtis.
Yes, the Megs, Cliff Curtis. Sunshine's Cliff Curtis.
Yes, there you go.
But he really rules the movie during that point where Clooney's bullshitting about the gold and we're getting it back to Kuwait and all that, and he's like they sent 3 soldiers out here to bring back Kuwaiti gold. Like that's a bunch of bullshit, man. But he's I don't know, he's just really, really good in it. Also got to mention too, I know this is one of the centerpiece comedic moments in the film, but that part where Clooney is getting everybody riled up and many nations and everything. So I just need to get that. Just give me a free car and we'll be fine or whatever. And everybody's holding hands and cheering and everything. And by the end of it, he's like, "So what do you say?" And the guy's like, "Cannot take car." He says, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, we'll buy one then." So I love that. Anyway, anything else that you guys want to bring up about Three Kings?
No, I'm ready to get to the super secret double features.
All right, let's get on to the super secret double feature.
Be very, very quiet.
Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
Okay. I'm going to go somewhat off kilter here, but I think you'll easily know what I'm getting at when I'm talking about this. The first Iron Man came to mind when watching this movie. Robert Downey Jr. goes to the desert to show off all his new weapons, basically going there to get gold, if you want to make a little beeline to this movie. And doesn't truly understand the damage he's doing until he starts seeing Stark Industries on all the things that are, blowing things up and whatever. And then he gets into that cave with that guy and he really starts learning, hey, you know what? The stuff that I do has a huge impact that I have not been noticing. And so that's, of course, Iron Man becomes a big comic book superhero movie after that point. But I think that journey is like a mini Three Kings that's happening right at the very beginning of the movie, and then we go on into the comic book.
That's beautiful. And then he goes back and destroys the evil people. I love that. I don't think I would ever.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
That's great.
That's good. Mine's more on the nose. Actually, I think there are 2 movies that are fairly on the nose for this. So I'm going to go ahead and mention them once. The one I didn't choose was Da 5 Bloods, which I think is very similar in the midst of war, trying to find treasure. Having to say something big about race and war and those kind of things. I think that works. The other one is the one I'm going with, and that is The Monuments Men.
Yep.
And on the nose, not just for the George Clooney-ness of it all, but also because they are in the midst of war trying to keep Hitler from destroying famous works of art that are super valuable. So they are putting together a team to go save those works of art. So yeah, I think it works as a nice George Clooney heisty war double feature.
I don't get a double feature because it was my recommend, but mine would be Blood Diamond. I always think of those 2 movies.
Blood Diamond, 2 very, very good one.
Protagonists have basically the same exact journey, greed to compassion. But yeah, those are great. I haven't seen Monuments Men.
Yeah. Well, there would be many people. There would be many people that tell you that's a fine choice. It is, but I thought it was worth seeing. It's
one
not the
of
best
those
George Clooney movie.
It's one of those movies you see the cast and you immediately think it's a Soderbergh because all the Soderbergh regulars are in there and whatever. But it's Clooney. Clooney directed it, so
yeah, he did.
Okay. Let's go on to what our next week's homework is, and it's Aaron's choice. So take it away, Aaron. What is our next week's movie?
You presented me with a pretty easy theme of heists for this one, and so we're going to go with comedic heist, one of my favorites from what is it, 8 years ago now? Let's watch Logan Lucky together. I love this movie, and am very excited to kind of get into, as Soderbergh has named it himself, his Ocean 7-Eleven.
Yep.
Has one of the funniest scenes of the last 10 years for me, when the prisoners don't understand that George R.R. Martin has not finished his book series Game of Thrones is based on. The back and forth, I cannot wait to get back to this movie. I've seen it twice. I really enjoyed it, but I haven't really analyzed it yet. So, and this, according to my search, is on Netflix.
It
in
is.
America. So.
It sure is.
Well, we're getting the Soderberghs in, man. The Soderberghs are getting represented in this show. This is at least the third one.
When
if
you
not
make
the
a million movies, you're going to hit on one every once in a while.
That's true. All right. Well, let's go on to do. So we got a couple of minutes to do some questions here.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
So let's do some questions. Let's see. What do we got? What's the best "this works" moment where that's the joke? Example: Sheriff Bart takes himself hostage in Blazing Saddles. Baby, you are so talented and they are so dumb. What do you guys think?
I can go first.
Go first. I'm still trying to find my answer.
No, you're good. The entirety of the movie The Bullet Train is This Works. And it is the point of the entirety of the movie of Bullet Train. It is all about chance and randomness. There are soliloquies on the subject in the movie itself. But everything in that movie is coincidence and chance, and I cannot believe this actually worked. So, yeah, I went with the entirety of Bullet Train.
My answer is in Bill and Ted, where they just like, hey, in the future, let's remember to go back in time and do a thing. And then the thing happens. Like, it's the dumbest time travel logic of all time, but that's the point and the joke of it. And that's probably my favorite thing about that movie.
There's a scene in Wayne's World where they're trying to figure out how in the world are we supposed to broadcast Tia Carrere's concert to Mr. Big in his limo at this very time, and how do we ensure that he watches it at that very time and everything? And Garth has a plan to do it where he somehow is able to figure out, we take the video and we ping the satellite at this point at 1.2 degrees, and then we like make sure that we get to his limo, blah blah blah. Goes through this whole like complicated scenario, and he's like, it's almost too easy. And so like he amazingly is able to get that to work. And yes, Mr. Big ends up actually watching his TV in the limo at the same time that they need him to. So that is my favorite one. Let's see. One more question here. What is an actor pairing you'd love to see? I'd love to see Hayden Christensen and Andrew Garfield opposite each other. Yeah, I can see that. I would love to see Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson together. I want them to either be buddies, and I want them to play off each other, or mortal enemies and battle each other, or both. It doesn't matter. I would watch that no matter what. They have been in the same movie before, but they have never played off each other before. So I am. Oh, believe me, I went to IMDb collaborations, Jeremy. Your brain will not find this.
I'm just trying to think of it. I guess you're saying that's not going to happen.
What?
I'm trying to figure out what movie they were in together.
Oh, what movie? I think it was Mo Better Blues.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So they've never really had a thing where they're the two main stars, and then they're playing off at each other. So that's what I would go with. All right, Jeremy.
I'm going with my two favorite actors right now, and that's Andrew Garfield and Nicholas Hoult. I would love to see the two of them in something that brings the emotion. Although I think they can both do comedy fine, but that's just tailor made for Jeremy. Just showing his two favorite actors. If you want to throw in, Ben Foster and Chris Pine and Denzel, it's like the trifecta for me. That would rule.
I I did not see anything in the pairing that said they had to be contemporaries, so I went with Cary Grant and Ryan Gosling, who I think their energy would be so fun together. Put them in like a comedy, like a Bringing Up Baby style comedy together, or Arsenic and Old Lace, or whatever. I think that would be a really fun pairing.
I agree. Over into the chat, we see for the This Works thing, JC says, I feel the entirety of The Nice Guys fits into This Works. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of conveniences and unbelievable type of things in there. Castro says Jason Bourne, the lady getting into the hotel. Flyboy says, in The Hunt for Red October, the most genius sonar man in the U.S. Navy happens to be on the sub tracking Red October. I will offer a rebuttal to that because in The Hunt for Red October, remember, there are tons of submarines looking for the Red October in that movie, and looking for the Red October in that movie, and the one on the Dallas just happens to be the one to see it. They focus on that sub because he is on that particular one. So you agree with that, right, Jeremy? There's a ton of subs looking for this, so
yes, and I think what the movie says is exceptional about Jonesy is his hearing, and his problem solving, especially the way he speeds it up to tell that it's not that it's man-made. But no, he's just in the right place at the right time, I think, to first start tracking the Red October.
Yeah. Anyway, not to call you out, Flyboy, but I saw that and I was like, hold on a second. In the who would like to see play together question, Nolan says Sophie Thatcher and Anya Taylor-Joy. I would be down with that for sure. JC says Christopher Walken and Gary Busey. Yeah, that would be insane. Tatsu says Devin Aoki and Jamie Chung. They both played Miho in Sin Cities. Yeah. Another This Works. Nolan says in LA Confidential when Kevin Spacey says Rollo Tomasi to Dudley. And then we go some more here. Polly says Cary Grant and Ryan Gosling. That's what you just said, right, Aaron?
That's literally what I just said.
Amazing.
I think he was just echoing you.
Yeah, I think so. Casper says, have Morgan Freeman and Lawrence Fishburne been in anything together? I can't recall off the top of my head, but that would be a great pairing. I agree. So anyway, and then Flyboy offers their rebuttal. Dallas is the only sub at the Poljarny Inlet or whatever. I don't know. I think everybody's looking for him, and it just happens to be the right one. Anyway,
either way, he's just in the right place at the right time. Yeah, that's great hearing.
Exactly. But it does count. It counts in a way. I just want to say you gotta have. Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for this week. Next week, Logan Lucky. Can't wait to look at that movie again. That's going to be great. Once again, chat, thank you for coming out and watching us today. We love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. But that's going to do it for this week. We will see you next time. See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com.
Fuck. I was just looking at the menu for lunch today because my wife and I are going to this kick-ass Italian place that opened recently here. And I would like to ban the use of a single word on restaurant menus, and that word is perfection.
Oh, yeah.
Toasted to perfection, grilled to perfection.
Yeah.
Seared to perfection. This particular menu, I'm telling you, this is probably the best Italian food I've ever had. Except maybe that place, Chris, that we went in LA with Kevin. They have the word perfection on their menu like 12 times. And it stuck out, and it reminds me how often I see that on menus, and it drives me crazy because perfection is really unattainable. You certainly can't attain it on 12 different menu items.
Yeah, there's probably some I don't know if there's marketing on this, but you know that there's somebody who's looking over the menu and saying, you're not really selling this quite enough.
Right.
How about toasted to perfection? And they're just like, oh, okay. I'll just throw that in there.
I love the poster choice for today, Chris.
Yes.
Is that going to stay there, or are you going to start swapping out themed posters?
It may stay there for a bit. I may have slightly alluded to this earlier when I was switching posters in and out. This was when you were gone for the 6 months.
Okay.
I was actually switching posters out on the regular for a few weeks, which is annoying because all of these posters are rolled up and you have to flatten them out and all that. And the other thing is these poster cases were not meant to be switched out hundreds of times because they have these cheap little things on them, and like every time you those little metal prongs, so every time you bend those back and then bend them forward, you're getting them closer and closer to breaking off, and like one broke off on this one when I did this. So I will probably keep Three Kings up here for a bit. I need to buy some more cases is what this really means, or get rid of all of my posters or something. I don't know.
You got options. The IMDb said that when Spike Jonze, he had never acted before Three Kings, and when he was making Being John Malkovich, he was making evening phone calls to David O. Russell to practice his accent for Three Kings.
Oh, wow. I was wondering where it all, like, what his year was like Spike Jonze being in this movie, coming out with his first big feature, all of that, all in the same year. Of course, it's 1999.
Yeah,
of course it is.
The year
it's
of all
such
years.
I've been trying to figure out what my next like collecting obsession is. And I've gone between like sports cards. I was like, maybe I'll get back into sports cards. And I've been looking at that kind of stuff. And then I was like, you know what's fun that kind of matches my personality is Disney's Lorcana, which is this collectible card game where the cards are also, you know, can be valuable depending on which ones you get, but it's also this game you play. And they're coming out with like a Pixar release like next year, Pixar set kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. And they're like, I'm not really into like Magic the Gathering style games. Like I probably would never play it, you know. And I just thought, why isn't there? And I know there are products that are similar to this, but there's nothing out there that is like the set is the movies from the year. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to get the rights from all the different studios, so I know this will never happen. But where like the set of cards is just the movies with some cool art that, you know, indicates that movie or whatever. And you could do the fun little parallels and numbered sets and all that kind of stuff. And then just think about like collecting, like they could, you know, do like old year releases, like, you know, do a year where they're doing like, you know, 1999, like we just said or whatever. And like you'd like want the movies you love the most kind of thing. And so like the better movies would be hotter collectors cards like the players are in sports.
I got an almost famous one of one autograph by Kate Hudson.
There you go. See, you get it. You get it. I don't know. It'll never exist. I think all the rights issues are just too complicated, but man, I would get into that. I would totally do like the movies, you know, card sets or whatever.
It's not a game but those steelbooks are pretty collectible and have like unique art. That's the closest I think there is to what you're looking for. And I know you collect or buy some of those.
Yeah. Practically, that's more of a physical media thing, and kind of the collection aspect is secondary to that. But yeah. Anyways, I was just thinking like, man, I kind of really like cards, you know, like I like the idea of like, oh, here's a handful of things that I love, you know, my favorite, you know, sports players or whatever. And I just like, why isn't there that for movies? And like, they've got this Pop Century set that comes out every year, but that's just like celebrities, you know, it's not like specifically movies. It's like the celebrities. It's like the actors or, you know, reality stars or whatever.
I got somebody from Celebrity DUI or whatever that show's called. It's not DUI.
They were selling a one-of-one autographed Zoe Saldana at my local card shop from the Pop Century. So
how much?
I think it was $150.
As somebody I collect baseball cards. I started doing this again a couple of years ago. I don't go hog wild. I buy a couple boxes every year, and then I take the best of those cards and sell or trade them for Orioles or cards that I want. But I recognize that the value in them is completely arbitrary and subject to things that I cannot control. That's why I like to get Orioles. That's my favorite team, and autographed cards, because even if the card doesn't have value to me, the autograph will have value sentimentally. I was reading, I do have a little bit of crypto, like I bought a couple years ago, not a lot, but I read an article last week that was basically like, think of the strategic Bitcoin reserve Trump is proposing as a strategic baseball card reserve.
There was a card that just the game somebody bought for like $1.4 million. It was a recent baseball card.
It was Paul Skeen's
rookie
relic. I think there was a piece of his jersey on there, and it was autographed, and it was a 1/1. And that was known before, when that series came out, that was known. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, that's who Skeens plays for, put a bounty out on the card before it was ever pulled. And they offered 30 years, season tickets behind home plate, in addition to all sorts of like meet and greet Paul Skeens, get autographed this and that. Like for some reason, they really wanted that card. And the kid who pulled it auctioned it instead. And that was smart.
Because smart.
He lives in California. He's not a Pirates fan.
The alternative is watching 30 years of Pirates baseball.
I don't spend too much time reading about this stuff, I promise. But there are some in the baseball card collecting community that think that kid's dad is either a card breaker or has a connection to a card breaker, and the kid only pulled it because his dad snagged the right box because he knew which one was going to be in.
Wouldn't be surprised considering the McDonald's monopoly thing that happened and everything. So
well, and there's the whole, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, I won't go too much into it, but there's a whole thing where they're using like super sensitive scales, thank you, and they're even using like centrifuges and whatnot to basically
CAT scans. They're doing CAT scans on these things too.
Yeah, to figure out like which cards have the big hits. And
God dang.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, because you can sell an unopened box for these crazy prices because of the cards that might be in there. It's just like it's like this brand new lottery, you know.
I could have used a CAT scan / centrifuge / some one of those things that you just mentioned back in 1990 when I was looking for Ozzie Smith in a Donruss set, because I swear I bought like 10 to 15 boxes just to get that one card to complete the whole set. And I might as well have just bought the set straight up, because I don't know what it was about Ozzie Smith particularly. I had all the other ones, all the ones that were super valuable. And Ozzie Smith is a good player and Hall of Famer, but I could not get Ozzie Smith for my life, man.
Yeah, I saw a box a month or two ago. They come out with all these super high-end
hobby
boxes. Yeah, and it was just like, it was $1,500, and you're guaranteed to get 3 autographs, and there's 3 cards in the box. $1,500 for 3 cards, and like, there's no guarantee the autographs aren't like Joey Ortiz or somebody that is obscure or a rookie. Like, you're not guaranteed for it to be Shohei Ohtani or something. Like, you're just guaranteed to get 3 autographs. I'm like, man, it's really rapidly becoming like a rich person's hobby, and
you're playing deal or no deal essentially.
Yes,
when you do that.
Yes,
yeah. because they're pricing it to the point of, well, you might get a good card, but you probably won't.
Nope. Nope.
And all I'm saying is, why not movies? Look, somebody's going to make some money. It might as well be you. I don't even need to have this idea. Just give it away. Just make it reality. That's all I'm saying.
Fairy tales could come true. It could happen to you.